Well, good morning.
Good morning.
This is Marty with Excellence in Education Resource Center in Monrovia, and I welcome you to another Meet the Teacher video. Today I have the privilege of speaking with Miss Tanya, and she is our literature department.
Oh, the entire department. Huh?
Yes.
Okay.
The whole department.
Okay.
Now, we know that language arts composes basically of grammar, vocabulary, composition, literature.
Yes.
And you have chosen to take literature as your specialty.
Yes.
And why is that?
I think because literature is the foundation for so many of the different aspects of language arts. There is such beauty in the way that literature is written, the way the author chooses to use the vocabulary or the writing style, the way that they make grammar work properly or improperly, if they're trying to make a point. I think too, when it comes to writing, so many times you tell a kid, hey, write something, and they just puzzle and they go, I don't know what to write about. But if you say, hey, we read this chapter, what do you think of this person or this event? Suddenly they have something to write about, and their brains can involve or act on something else as opposed to, oh no, I have to come up with something to say.
Okay, they need that prompt. So
correct. So I feel like literature is really the foundation for so many different discussions. I think it's fun, frankly. I think literature is entertaining.
Have you been a reader your whole life?
I have.
Okay.
I have. And I've gone through different stages. When I was younger, I was a Nancy Drew fan, like, my elementary years.
There you go.
And all my writing sure sounded like Carolyn Keene, I mimic that style.
Okay.
But even the stories that I haven't loved, even though there have been books where I've finished it and I thought, I hate that story. I absolutely hate it.
Interesting.
And yet there's something about it that has worked on me. There's something that I've appreciated, or there's something that I've maybe recognized in myself, or in a family member, or in society in general, that kind of go, oh yeah, I see how this applies to the world at large, not just this plot.
Do you have an example of such a book in your personal case?
In my personal case, okay. Now you're putting me on the spot.
Yes.
What book do I just hate? I can't think of one right at this moment. You're putting me on the spot.
For me, it would be like Dickens.
Okay.
And his books.
Yes.
I find them to be long and boring.
Long and tedious.
But like you say, there's messages and lessons. No less compare your life to where talking about the characters he writes about and go, wow, I thought I had it bad, but whew,
right.
I'm cool.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I can think of one when I was younger. We read Our Town, the play, and I hated it. I thought it was sad. I didn't like the way the characters chose different things. I didn't like the certain deaths that took place.
Yeah.
And that it just really bothered me. But as time has gone on, there are things about the play that I appreciate. I appreciate how it's kind of a viewpoint into kind of small town living and things like that. So I don't know if that helps, but that's a possibility.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. You mentioned writing.
Yes.
I tend to believe that the more a person reads, the better writer they can become.
Yes.
Because they're absorbing styles.
Yes.
Sentence structure. I mean, different authors. There are some authors that sentences go for 2 paragraphs, it seems like.
Yes.
And then you have the chop authors. So what else can you tell me about your classes now?
So I've chosen to focus on mostly classic literature, the really well-written quality literature from previous eras. And I think there's an aspect to you were talking about writing style.
Yeah.
We live in a culture now where, our vocabulary is so tiny compared to what used to be. And I think that when we expose ourselves to these very complicated sentences and vocabulary sometimes, not always complicated, but sometimes, it expands our own writing. It expands our view.
Yes. Yes.
We start using more words than just, oh, he was nice. You know? I think also one of the things that I love about teaching classic literature is that it really teaches critical thinking skills. Like,
that's so important.
So today, like, you get spoon-fed a lot of stuff. Like, maybe you'll get a sentence that says, well, Johnny is bad. And the teacher says, so everybody, what do we think of Johnny? Oh, well, we all know because it was told to us. Oh, Johnny's bad. Oh, okay. But in a classic literature work, you might see Johnny kick a dog. You might see Johnny break a window. And you might see Johnny write a beautiful letter to his mother telling her how much he loves her. And the teacher says, well, what do we think of Johnny? Well, let's see. Johnny's flawed. He makes really bad choices. But he also has good qualities. It's suddenly it expands Johnny in from this two-dimensional thing into a real person with flaws and strengths.
Now, the one thing, Carolyn, that's my wife, by the way, and I agree on is that we dislike reading classes or courses that address questions at the end of the chapter. Because we think
like worksheet type questions.
Yeah, or comprehension tests.
Correct.
And we believe that spoils the true meaning of great literature.
I would agree.
Okay. And so with your class, how do you go about with your students?
So they don't have worksheets. I might... but I might give them a question to ponder. Like, they'll read for homework, for example, maybe they'll read 5 chapters and I'll say, okay, so write a letter from one character to another based on what you know of these people. Or, you know, maybe it's tell about, you know, as if this person were writing a diary entry, like what's going through there, you know, so different things like that. And then when we're actually in class, I give them broader questions about why someone does what they do, or I mean, think of Shakespeare, for example. He's notorious for not letting us know his true feelings. So you read anything from Shakespeare and you're like, I don't know, is he Protestant? Is he Catholic? Because he'll play both sides very, very well. His characters have multiple motives, and it's beautiful because you can have these deep conversations and they become real people, and they can be troubling, and they can make really bad decisions, and we can learn from them. Like, it's a lot harder for me to say to you, hey, Marty, I've noticed that you've been doing ABC. We need to work on that. But if I say, hey, look, this character is doing ABC, what do we think of that? What are the consequences of that? It changes our focus to something out there, which is safer to talk about.
So it takes away the personal attack component of a one-to-one.
Definitely.
Marty, you're messing up.
Right. And I'm not saying that all classic literature is moralistic. I'm not. But every work was written with an agenda. An author has put pen to paper for a specific reason, reacting to the world at large, reacting to something personal, like whatever it might be. And then we get to kind of peek in and see, like, well, what's unique about that time period and what's universal that we still struggle with today?
Yeah. Well, the one thing I can say is I tend to snoop into my teachers' classes. I like to pop in and see, okay, what's going on? What's the environment like? What's the attitude? And the great thing about Tanya is that she has a great rapport with her students. And there's interaction, which I believe is very important, because you're digging into how each individual child or student, based upon their background and their knowledge of literature, how they interact and what their interpretations are.
Right. And I fully expect to have students who don't like the books. I fully expect to have students that disagree with things. And I am perfectly fine with that. As long as we can disagree respectfully.
Yes.
As long as we can say, hey, that is an interesting opinion. Tell me more about that. I don't agree with you, but I'd like to learn more about why you feel that. I think especially in our culture where we are so quick to judge and be critical.
Yes.
I think it's really important to teach kids how to listen to each other, how to hear other perspectives, and still walk away and say, you know what? Good point. Don't agree with you, but good point. And part is friends. Now, I will say I don't usually get heated discussions. I don't usually get arguments. Like,
oh, darn. I think I'll join your classes just for fun.
I don't usually have that. But at the same time, I'm okay with it. I think we can create a safe enough place
Yes.
where we can have those chats and have it not be something that we're afraid of.
Ah, fantastic. So in the couple minutes left,
Yeah.
Why don't you give us an overview, a quick overview of the books you have chosen for this year?
For this year. Okay, so this year we'll start with Ivanhoe, which is a great book by Sir Walter Scott. And it covers the Middle Ages. It's a swashbuckling adventure. But it also delves into things like racism, and it delves into codes of ethics, and whether that is something that we hold dear to ourselves or to the society at large. So that is one book we will read. We're going to read Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, all about sin and condemnation and judgment, but also about forgiveness and just really kind of how our actions interact or affect society as well as ourselves.
Good.
King Lear by William Shakespeare, we're going to do, which is really a wonderful story, sad, but wonderful story about parents and children, especially aging parents.
Oh, that's me.
But it's also kind of like a fractured Cinderella tale. Like you've got, they're not stepchildren necessarily, but there is like the good one and the not so good children, kind of a feeling. So there's that.
Normal family life.
Yes. There's Emma by Jane Austen. And this is a fun one because it's unexpectedly humorous. It's funny, and there's a lot of interaction between social classes and kind of what wealth can do for you or not do for you as far as life choices go, and just kind of the way society interacts with each other, male roles, female roles, etc. And then the last one we're going to do is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. It's our horror book. And
boys, did you hear that?
Horror. And this one is great because every time I read it, I'm reminded of the line in the first Jurassic Park movie where he says something to the effect of, we were so busy trying to figure out whether or not they didn't stop to think about whether or not they should. So there's a lot of like science, ethics of science kind of stuff rolled into there as well.
That's kind of timely now when you think about what's going on with the scientific field.
Yeah.
All right. And then do you ever bring in movie clips or audiovisual?
Yes, sometimes I'll bring in movie clips. I will often bring in other works of literature. So for example, when we're doing The Scarlet Letter, which is set during the Puritan era, we also read some Puritan poets like Anne Bradstreet as it applies. So we don't do like an entire unit on Anne, but rather if there's something in there that's like, oh, that touches on a theme, I might bring in an outside source to kind of flesh that theme out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, Mr. and Mrs. Audience, this is a class that I believe is as important as some math and some science, because it's given you not so much the physical perspective, but emotional, psychological, cultural perspectives. And a well-read person, I believe, is more successful than an unwell-read, as that's the term, person.
Well, yes, because again, you've got the critical thinking skills, but you also have communication skills, being able to express what's in here in a coherent manner, so that you can be understood.
Fantastic. So, again, Tanya, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Marty. I appreciate it.
And we look forward to seeing some of your kids in her class. You should be signing up now.
Yes.
Why don't you want to give a phone number to?
Yeah, you can
or
probably email is the best. Robinson5Tanya@gmail.com, and my info is actually on the website.
Yes.
So yeah, please reach out.
So go to our website, excellenceineducationhomeschooling.com. And until then, have a great rest of the summer, and we will see you on the next video.
Bye.